everyone, it's Irene here. I'm back in Stockholm, Sweden for a few days meeting with investors, parents, families, and friends. And some of them are considering buying a residential property in London for themselves or for an adult child as a long-term investment. And every time I return to Stockholm, I'm reminded about how different the Swedish buying system for property is compared to London, and how easily this can really surprise Swedish buyers or foreign buyers when they want to buy a property in London. And here are some of the key differences that I have noticed and some of my clients have noticed. So when you first agree to buy a property in London, then both parties, the buyers and the sellers, need to appoint solicitors and enter into what is called the formal conveyancing process. And that can often take 3 months, sometimes even 6 months or even 9 months or more. But obviously, when I work with clients, I look to speed up that process as quickly as possible by using really speedy solicitors and also pushing on the sales side to make sure that information comes through. So information can be limited. Often the sales side are told to give as little information as possible because then they can't be held accountable or to be sued. But as you know, you have different parties, different agendas, and it is really important that things can move on, and I can help to push that forward. And this is really one of the reasons why about 1/3 of all agreed sales don't actually happen. They fall through, and it's very frustrating for all parties. And this often happens because maybe they've agreed to buy a property where there would be an issue and one could have spotted it earlier with a more experienced eye. Or simply the sales side is not giving enough information or other issues happen. So with all of this, there's also the buyer's aware situation in the UK where the buyer needs to do due diligence and to do surveys. That's very wise to do, and I always recommend, and also to negotiate. And all of this requires quite active management with knowledge and experience, ideally. So it's really not a system in the UK which is easy to do or to manage or navigate on your own. And despite this, there are many upsides to investing in London. And this is why many international and remote buyers, such as Swedish investors or others, are really interested in buying a London property despite all these hurdles. And there are many clear advantages to this. So, for example, if you're looking to buy it for a rental property as part of maybe capital preservation and rental income, you can get gross rental yields of between 5 to 7% plus. And then on top of that, you can have the capital growth. So with the capital growth assumptions, modestly assumed, you can achieve between a 50 to 60% return on capital employed over a 5-year period. And what surprises many Swedish investors is that you can actually get access to bank lending. I spoke to someone today who was very surprised to find out that they actually, despite living in Sweden, could get bank lending from a British bank. But that obviously depends on a case-by-case basis. But I can make introductions to brokers who are specialized in Swedish and international buyers wanting to buy British property. The other advantage is that the rental market in the UK is much less regulated than in Sweden, and it really gives landlords greater flexibility and I'd say protection than having Swedish rental property, for example. And I would say that despite the incoming Renters' Rights Reform Act, which is going live on the 1st of May 2026. And I'm less concerned about that act. If one is a responsible landlord investing in central London, it's going to be less of an issue. And then another massive advantage is, and that I do believe many Scandinavian investors do like, is that they can have ownership of a physical income producing asset that is outside of Sweden and it's outside of the Swedish currency, offering diversification within the entire family's portfolios of assets. And it can also provide a stable London home for the investor themselves or a loved family member, like an adult child, maybe studying in London or working there, um, while retaining, and protecting the long-term family assets within a portfolio. So it really provides also an opportunity to have a stable London home for themselves or for a child while keeping it as a long-term family asset. And above all, in periods of geopolitical uncertainty and currency weaknesses like we're experiencing right now, and I don't believe that this situation will improve. In fact, what's your view? I think it's only going to get worse. In this type of situation, many families are looking carefully at where and how they hold assets. So I believe long-term London residential property, when bought well, can provide income, a currency diversification, and long-term capital protection. And on top of this, you can maybe even have an exciting adventure for your entire family. Sometimes it's nice to explore something new, a new culture, and to give your children and both yourselves, for you and your spouse, to enjoy a new exciting adventure later in life. And I believe that life is never too late for a new adventure or to design your own special life the way you want it. And, so why not? And having and owning a London home can be just that next step in an adventure. So, with all of this, when buying a London home or a London property purchase, it needs to be correctly executed for success and to avoid costly mistakes. And this is where having an experienced and knowledgeable buying agent comes in, especially since other parties, like the estate agents, are working solely for the seller. And the British law operates with the assumption that there's something called buyers aware, that all buyers need to be aware of what they're buying. And for this to work, as a buyer, you often need to have the experience and the knowledge to be able to spot issues and know what to look for, what's good and what's not so good. So, as a buying agent on the ground in London, I operate through my business, Prosper Living, and I act solely for the buyer in a tailored way that works for them. I have a hands-free, bespoke service for remote and busy investors where I help them to identify and to negotiate for the right property. And then I also give access to my personal professional power team of solicitors and surveyors and others. And I drive the transaction forward in the conveyancing process for greater speed, discipline, and certainty, and helping to overcome issues when they happen. And they will happen. So it's good to have someone who can just steer clear of those rocks. And I also help to uncover and to manage risks throughout the process. And if you want, I can also support with financial modeling about what the investment might result in if you're looking at it from an investment property perspective, or you want that flexibility, or to be mindful about how the acquisition can be done in a tax efficient way by introducing you to a tax advisor where that is relevant. So whether you're buying the property for your own London family home or for an adult child, to have a place to live in London, or as a pure investment, my role is to help you to achieve this more safely, confidently, and securely, and with a more successful outcome, and to avoid any costly mistake. So if you are in Stockholm and you're interested in buying a London property and you'd like to meet me in person, I'd be delighted to connect with you and to meet you either over Zoom or indeed in person next time I am in Stockholm. Or if you live elsewhere in the world, I have investors calling me from all over the world. Obviously, I'm happy to meet with you over Zoom. If you're interested, you can also download my investor guide from my profile. It's available both in English and in Swedish, where I'm happy to meet you for a no obligation conversation. I'm at your service with calm, confidence, and joy. Look forward to speaking to you soon, and thank you for watching.